Hello, people of the internet. Hope you're having a fantastic day. A little bit warm here in the UK today, unusually. And thank you for joining me. Today, we're mostly going to be talking about getting started teaching guitar and why I think it's a really good idea for most people, even not not complete beginners, but like advancing beginners. It can be a pretty cool thing to be doing. You can learn a lot in the process. Want to be a shout out to Save the Music, a charity organization based in the US who kind of inspired me to do this little chat a bit. They provide funding to get music into schools, which is something, I never even thought of it as a privilege that we have music classes, but lots of people don't have music classes. So if you happen to be looking for a charity to support, Save the Music, great charity, does a lot of really good things. So a big shout out to them. A big shout out to all of the people who made a contribution for that, which is kind of the point of this session. Was originally going to be a closed thing, but actually loads of people emailed in and said how much they'd really enjoy seeing this thing after that charity kind of fundraising thing has happened. So I've got a few questions that were emailed in from the donors for that thing to answer. But this is obviously a completely open session, and big thank you to, or welcome to everyone that came from the newsletter thing that we did as well. Oh, wow. Kane's just dropped a massive donation there. Thank you, Kane. That surprising, and I wasn't anticipating that happening today, but thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Looks like we got some pretty international thing going on as well. Lots of people with lots of questions. So what I think I'm going to do, we got Germany, Czech Republic in, the Philippines, New Jersey, Melbourne, Australia. Wow, are you up like super late, Liz, I guess. So yeah, pretty international scene going on here today. So big welcome to everyone. So a little bit, just I'm going to do a bit of a chat first about some of the things that I think are really important and why I think teaching is a good idea. And then we'll get a little bit more into some Q&A sort of stuff as well. So I've got my assistant, Lorraine, will be checking the questions and stuff. So feel free to drop in questions whenever you want, and she'll field them and pop them in a little document I've got up on this other computer. Hopefully it'll all work out that way. Anyway, so really interesting thing. So I started teaching when I was really young. I think I was like 12 or 13 years old when I started teaching, which is like crazy looking back on it. And to be honest, I don't really remember why I thought it might be a good idea to start teaching, but I used to teach other kids in my neighborhood how to play guitar and get a little bit of money, and then I'd use that money to go and buy records or have guitar lessons or buy books about guitar. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about my own guitar journey is how much I learned from teaching. And when I was teaching university students, like kids doing degrees and diplomas and even masters, if they were coming to me for lessons, they had to teach as well. That was like part of the thing. If they weren't teaching, I wasn't going to teach them. So I kind of forced it upon them. I wouldn't obviously force it on any of you, but if any of you are doing degrees in music or higher, then you should definitely be doing some teaching as well. It really helps consolidate all the knowledge that you've got. It'll make you think about stuff. There's nothing better than students asking difficult questions. Why do you have to do it that way? Why are you fingering the chord that way? Why do I have to learn these songs? They're big questions. And when you answer those kind of questions, it'll make you think about your own playing. It'll stop you making those mistakes. It's an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool. So teaching in itself is a good thing to be doing if you're a guitar player. I think it'll be beneficial for your general playing, your musicianship, your understanding of music, harmony, songs, all of that sort of stuff. Force you to learn a load of songs because students want to learn songs as well, so increase your repertoire. There's loads and loads of goodness comes with learning to teach. But it's important that there's these kind of different places. Sorry, I just keep saying, is Justin's audio to the left? I don't think so. I'm just using my laptop, and I think the mics are on there. Sorry, that question just flagged for me. Hi, Keith. Good to see you made it as well. Keith, moderator for the live chat. Thank you, man. So teaching is a good thing. How do you start teaching? That's, I think, an important first step. And when should you start teaching? So I've already said, like, when I started teaching when I was 12 or 13 years old, I wasn't very good. That's for certain. I wasn't a good teacher. I wasn't a very good player. But I could explain the things that I could do, and I was always at least a few steps ahead of the students. So I was kind of figuring things out as I go. Now, I think I was charging like a 50 cents or $1 or something like that. So my recommendation is if you're like an advancing beginner and you want to start teaching for yourself, right? So you're happy to help the other people, but like whether it's a friend or kids or friends' kids or whatever, if you're not feeling super confident as a guitar player yet, I'd advise that you don't charge any money and you use it as a learning experience. So what you get out of the relationship is you'll become a better guitar player and musician for yourself. If you're going to start charging people, you need to know what you're doing. I think it's a really, really important thing. You don't, I don't teach jazz much because I don't really feel confident as a jazz player, and I don't feel like I want to teach it. So I think it's a good idea. If you like, I know lots of guys that are teachers, not necessarily musicians or guitar players, but they know how to teach. They're okay at guitar. So for teaching beginners, that's fantastic. They're going to be really good at teaching beginners because they understand teaching processes and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, making sure that you know your stuff, I think, can be a really helpful thing. It's okay to learn on the job, I think, as well. So while, as I've kind of mentioned earlier on, that when I started teaching, I didn't know how to teach and I didn't know how to play very well, but I still did it and kind of got away with it. So one of the things that I think is really beneficial about it is when you're like learning on the job and being able to teach things different ways, particularly in that not charging people money period. It gives you a chance to kind of try stuff out. And one of the examples I can remember is a lot of students asking about them. You always get, since I was a kid, you could get songbooks and stuff that had the chords and the lyrics and all that sort of stuff, but they very rarely talked about strumming or strumming patterns. Obviously different in my books because it's something that I'm aware that never used to be in the books I wanted. Well, it wasn't in the books I bought and I wanted it in there. So rhythm was one of those things that people would always ask about. They come in for a lesson, I'd show them the chords, and I could see them struggling with the rhythm. And the ones who always got it, looked comfortable with it, always kept their hand moving. And it was like, keep moving. This is an important thing. And that really informed me as a teacher that that was the thing I should be teaching. But it also helped me figure out a lot of stuff on my own playing side. And I started watching then. I got a little clue, like, oh, that, keeping the hand moving, that might be a good idea. So I was watching any videos I could of guitar players that I liked, and yeah, they're all keeping their hand moving consistently. So I'm kind of learning off of that teaching thing, and I think that's okay. So shall I do a question actually? So I've got a question here that was from Mary Bishop. And she said, is it okay to use Justin's online courses as the basis for teaching your own student? I'm thinking it's okay, but should there be a donation? Blah, blah, blah. And absolutely use all my materials. That's totally fine. Like, obviously, you can't like photocopy the songbooks because they got copyright material and that sort of stuff's not cool. But like using my course outline as a thing for your own teaching practices, your own private teaching, is totally fine. Like, hundreds of people have emailed me in over the years and said that they do that already. And it's like, I can't stop it and I don't want to stop it. I feel honored that you want to do it. I'd probably feel a bit miffed if you copied like my whole course and then plopped it up online and said it was your own course. That wouldn't make me too happy. But as far as like looking for a plan to take students through, if you're a guitar teacher, it's perfect. Like, if you're following that same program, you can tell the students, hey, this is what we're doing in the class. If you get stuck, you can go and refer to the website. You've got songbooks and all of that sort of stuff that line up perfectly with it. So the student buys a songbook and you can take them through the songs. It's like, it makes it a very, very easy ecosystem to have. If you get benefit from it and you want to make a donation to the site, fantastic. If you're like, man, I'm teaching just to get, to put food on the table and pay the rent sort of stuff, it's cool. It's all right. Use that program as a way of getting into teaching. You will still learn a whole lot on the journey because that one-on-one interaction with the students is a really powerful thing. You'll still learn a lot about teaching. Students will ask you questions that you don't know, and so you'll reinforce that sort of stuff for your own playing as well. So that's a really I just happened to notice that when I was reading through the things to mention a little earlier. Well, let me just look at my sheet so I remember not to miss out too much stuff. So a good question would be, how do you know you've got enough skills to start teaching? And I would say that it's when you can play songs confidently. If you can play the chords and you can strum and you've got all of that sort of stuff down, you could start teaching. Whether you're ready to start charging for that sort of teaching, yeah, I'm not 100% certain, but the charging thing, it's a little bit, it depends on who you're doing it, who you're pitching it to. So if you're pitching to children or adult beginners, you just need to be able to play confidently the things that you're going to be teaching them. I think that's a pretty big deal. Now, one thing that I will mention about when you start getting students in that are not appropriate for you is don't take them. I think it's a really good idea to have a network of other teachers to know your scene a little bit. So you'll probably want to advertise your teaching services somewhere. So when you advertise in that place, you maybe have a look at who else is doing that. Maybe give them a call and ask them about how much they're charging so you can set your rates competitively, all of that sort of stuff. But as well, if you know there's a guy down the road who's teaching heavy metal and you're more into folk, and they come in and they say, oh, you know, it's your first lesson. Okay, one of these chords. What music do you love? I really love metal. And you're like, oh, God, I don't know any Metallica at all. I only know like James Taylor and Neil Young. You should be open and say, hey, man, look, you know, I can show you some stuff, but if that's really your bag, you're much better off going to see Pete down the road there. I can give you his number because that's his special area. And what you find will happen if you do that kind of thing a little bit is that he'll remember that you've done that, or she will remember that you've done that, and they'll probably repay the favor. They should. And it builds a little community of people. And that way the students really get the best, they get their best education, which is what I think that you should be aiming for. At every step of the way, you should be thinking about what the student gets and giving them the best possible experience that they can have. Okay. First student, paid or not paid? Not paid. That's a very simple one. You should definitely have a go at teaching without charging. So finding a student to teach, whether it's a friend or friend's children, or just anyway, friends of friends, somebody at work, anybody that you can find that wants to learn. You should try and teach without charging anything to start off with, to see if you're any good at it, to see if you like it, get used to. It's a little bit nerve-wracking for a lot of people. I must admit, I don't generally feel nervous when I teach because I guess I feel confident. I've been doing it a long time, but there have definitely been occasions where, and there was a question that just popped up here from the anonymous about how do you deal with a student who asks you something that you don't know yet. I would definitely recommend the honesty approach there. So if you get a student come in the room, and you're like, okay, what's you know, hi, how you doing? I'm Justin. What do you want to do? And I would always recommend having a notepad and taking some notes. I'll talk about a bit about that later, probably, about finding about what the student wants to go, what songs they like, what music they like, and then you ask them to play. You should always do that before anything else happens. Before you start showing off what you can do for the student, you want to see them play a little bit. Now, I've definitely been in this situation where people have come to me for a lesson and been really great at something, jazz, and they've sat down and played some really full-on stuff. I've been like, whoa, like, what am I going to teach this guy? This is, you know, this is a bit scary. But when you do the questionnaire, usually you're going to find some stuff that the things that they want to know about are probably not the things that they're really good at already, usually. If they are, and you get somebody who's coming to you for playing, if I had somebody come to me and they wanted to play speed metal, I would probably sort that out in the email before they even got through the door, to be honest. But which is something, again, we can talk about vetting students again in a little bit. But if they've got to you somehow for a lesson and you don't know anything about them, and they want to do something that you can't do, or they're better than you, you tell them, say, hey man, look, I'm really sorry about this, but obviously I'm not going to charge you, but can you show me some of that stuff? Because that's really cool. You know, there shouldn't be ego there anyway. If you're going to be a teacher, you should check your ego at the door. Like some of the pet hates of mine, which I don't want to get all kind of negative on it, is this, you know, teachers that I've heard about that spend most of the time playing in the students' class. Like, seriously? That in a class, if you're teaching, you shouldn't be doing all the playing. You can demonstrate something, definitely. Demonstrate an idea or a concept or a song and say, hey, do you like this? Do that. But most of the playing in a class should be the student doing the playing and then you helping them sort it out. So, yeah, and also while I'm on the other thing that I really don't like that people have done in the past, and I've seen, I know there was one very well-known guitar teacher that used to be guilty of doing this, and I always found it a bit of a wind-up, but I'm not going to name him before you ask. is they used to teach the stuff that they were practicing. And I was like, man, that is so not cool. Literally, they'd be like, yeah, I'm working on my dominant seventh arpeggios today. And so every student that came in the door, whether they were a beginner or more advanced, would be working on that same thing. So he could sit and practice and play that stuff at the same time. I'm like, nah, that's not, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Okay, let's have a look at some Q&A, and then I'll come back onto this one-on-one and group classes stuff. So I'm just going to scroll down the bottom of the track there. No problem, Anonymous. Recent bar chords lesson, Donald was into that. That's really good. Yes, there are lots of people pretending to be teachers on YouTube. So shall I go into that one now? There are a lot of people teaching on YouTube now. Far too many. It is, and I don't mean too many in like everyone's got to learn, and all of those people doing lessons now are learning their craft. They're learning how to make good lessons, and I wouldn't for a second suggest that they shouldn't do it. The paid for courses one kind of winds me up a bit. I've seen a few just lately. I've had students email me things saying, hey, I just bought this course, can you go and have a look at it? And a couple of them were just really not very happening. So it really that irks me a bit, but I don't think there's much I can do about it. Like if you're really good at writing sales copy and you can write a crappy course, you'll probably make some money, but I don't think it's very ethical. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing lessons on YouTube, even if you don't really know what you're doing. I think wrong is a bad idea. If you know, and when I say don't know what you're doing, if you haven't been teaching long and you're not very experienced in figuring out the flow of all of but there's definitely no danger in it. You're going to learn. You're going to learn about video editing. You learn about course construction. You're going to learn lots of stuff, and you'll get a lot of the benefits that I'm talking about. Why teaching is good. You'll have to go through a lot of that thought process. But I think teaching one-on-one is going to be infinitely more beneficial than trying to teach online at those early stages. So, and I would definitely recommend, if you're not really sure about songs and transcribing, not submitting songs to tab websites, because it's just really confusing for beginners, because they go there like they don't know which is the right one or not. So yeah, okay. Harvey is asking a very good question. How do you motivate students, especially to begin with, to practice regularly? So that's one question. I've picked it up from Harvey, but I think I saw similar sort of things flick by earlier. So inspiring a student is a massive part of teaching stuff. It's like, maybe it's not the most important thing, but it's definitely up there with the most important things. Having a course structure, able to play, being able to deliver stuff, all very, very important. But you've got to inspire the student and want to do it. One of the things that some of my team laugh about is that if I'm not in the mood for filming, even if if I'm massively backed up, I don't film. This morning was a good example. Actually, I was supposed to film this morning. I had some songs that I wanted to film. I sat down playing guitar, and I was like, man, I haven't had a practice session for ages. So I just practiced instead. Because for me, if I'm going to deliver, happy, hopefully inspiring videos about playing guitar to you guys, I have to feel like that. I have to feel like vibey and motivated. So if I'm, just had a scrap with the missus, or feeling sick, or some drama's going on for me that I'm not really feeling in that vibey mood, I just don't film. I've got plenty of other stuff to get on with. Maybe I'm planning a course or doing something else, but not being in front of the camera. So you do need to be inspiring, especially on film. But hey, how do you do that one-on-one? Some of my real life students would remember definitely occasions where I've been a bit worse for wear teaching. I used to teach often in between tours. So I'd literally come back off a tour, having lived a very full life on tour, and then come back and be, a bit white and not feeling a bit, didn't have my sea legs or whatever. And I got on with it. In that part of the game where you're not feeling super vibey, you have to learn to turn it on. Two, you should never let the student know that that's what's going on. You don't go, oh man, I've got a shocking hangover today. Like, that would be super unprofessional. Don't ever do that. Just pretend nothing's wrong. But to keep the student circling back, so it's not just about this part, it's about the practicing and a practice schedule. Now, some of you be familiar already with my practice assistant, the tool that I've got over on the website, and that is born of the sort of practice routines I used to give when I gave one-on-one lessons, and it's there for exactly the same reason. In fact, loads of teachers use my practice assistant with their students. So they're logged onto their website, they get the student to log in to their thing, they build their practice routine, the student's practice routine in JustinGuitar, because you can build your own routine and you can type your stuff in, and then you set that for the student and off they go, and they can mark each practice session complete as they've done it with the timer. Now, in the old days, I used to use like a printed paper. I made a little grid using Microsoft Word, like a big space for the thing you should practice, and then columns for each day of the week and how long they should practice it for. So it'd be like playing scales with a metronome, 5 minutes, and then the student should tick the box every day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever, depending on how many days a week you would suggest they practice. I think usually 5 days a week is a good amount to practice. You should have time off as well. And that, I think, is the feedback I get from students is that that's the most inspiring thing. The fact that they can see that they're going along and they're doing the practice. It's also a motivator if you get to like Sunday and your lessons on Monday and you're like, oh man, you got the shit. I haven't done, look, I've done none of that scale practice. Justin's going to kick my ass on Monday. Oh man, so you have to do that extra practice in to tick it all. As a student, you don't, as a teacher, you won't find many students that just tick all of the boxes and then pretend that they've done it, because it'll be dead obvious, right? They'll come in and they've written down that they've practiced 10 minutes a day on this thing for a whole week, and then they come in the room and they can't do it. You're going to know, like, yeah, you didn't do it, did you? They'll only do that once. So, I think that's possibly the most important thing. Tied in with that is making sure that you don't expect too much or give too little to the student. So part of that, the journey that I think a lot about, and the reason I think that my beginner course is pretty effective is that, well, one, I did it the left-handed thing. So I learned how to play using my own course left-handed as I was going, to make sure that it was kind of achievable. But nothing worse than if you give something that's really too hard for a student and they go home and they practice it and they feel hopeless at it. You can lose motivation real quick if you do that. But the same if you do it and it's like really easy, too easy. So part of that thing is going to be judging the student. You probably won't get it right for the first few weeks at least. So you need to see, you want to get a picture in the middle somewhere and see how they go, see how much practice time they've got, all that sort of stuff. Do they practice? How do they respond to practice? Do they get through it well? Do they practice hard and don't make so much progress? So you have to kind of learn a bit about the student in those early sessions to be able to pitch what you give them the right way. Partly of that as well, I think that part of the inspiring the student thing is the student being confident that your shit. If that doesn't happen, if they smell that you're not really got it together, then they're less likely to do the work because they won't believe you. And I find that particularly if I'm learning other stuff, I want to really know that the person who I'm learning from really knows it. Like I want to see proof that they can do it. I want to, when they play or do whatever it is that thing is, I want to say like, yeah, that's really good. That's cool. I know when I used to do a lot of rock climbing, I had a few different coaches for that. And the ones that I really respected, that I would practice what they said for, with the guys that would just go like, oh yeah, man, you can just do this. And they just effortlessly scale some really horrible route. And I'd be like, man, I can't do that. And then they'd say, do this little exercise. It seems silly, but I'd be like, if they said to do that silly exercise, I'm doing it. Whereas the other ones that were just lots of bravado, that I didn't really feel they were that good, they'd tell me to do an exercise. Even if it made more sense, I wouldn't believe it because I wasn't believing in them. So again, I feel like that's part of the reason I did the left-handed thing, was like, that's proof that my thing works, that the course works. So I'm hoping that would give students the confidence to go, well, he's written this course, he's been doing it for a little while. Oh, look, he tried it on himself. It's definitely going to work. And again, one of the reasons I think that using my site as a template or whatever, as a course outline for you doing your own private lessons, is, again, it gives the students confidence that you've sussed out a good system, that it's working, and you're kind of guiding them through this path. And you say, I've done it myself, and I've helped other students get through this, blah, 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 and try and inspire them, because it is important. Keeping people motivated is a really big part of the game. I've said it loads of times, and it's the same for me as well, that the hardest part of practice is getting your bum in the seat. That's like easily the hardest part of starting to practice. Like going to the gym. Like going to the gym isn't hard when you get there. When you get there, that's the clue. It's motivating yourself to get there. Going for a run is fairly easy. As soon as you've got the time, you put your shoes on, it's easy. It's getting the motivation to go to that place. So, you know, that's it's definitely something that you want to think about. I'm probably going a little bit too far, but if you want to do a little bit more research, if you're maybe a little bit further ahead in the teaching game, maybe you're already doing some teaching, having a look at neuro-linguistic programming can be a really interesting thing. I learned a lot about teaching and how to evaluate students and what the way that they're learning. It kind of explained some stuff, like some students like learning through visual things like seeing chord boxes, others like hearing it, others like feeling it. So trying to suss out whether a student fits that particular zone can be really helpful when you're doing a one-on-one. Obviously in video land, when I'm doing stuff, I try to do all of the different spectrum of learners so that hopefully I'm connecting. You'll often see that I explain the same thing a few different ways, and it's usually to try and catch that stuff, but that's probably not something that you want to get into right at the beginning. Okay, let me do a couple of questions. What do you do when you're teaching the young ones? Do you tell them to put a cap on the 6th fret, or do you do that? So I have never got into teaching really young children before. I'll be straight up. I just my cutoff was always, I didn't want to teach anyone who didn't know what music they liked. So when I'd get a call from a mum or whatever saying, "Hey, I'd like you to teach my kid," and I don't do any more one-on-one lessons anymore, so this doesn't happen anymore, but I did do one-on-one lessons for, I don't know, a long time, 25 years or something. So I experienced it plenty, and that was always my rule, was like, can I have a chat with the kid? Say, "Hey, how you doing? What's your favorite band?" If they don't know, I'm not going to teach them, right? Because I want them to feel inspired by the music that they've got. That said, I'm now a dad. My daughter's 5, and we're learning ukulele. She learns a bit of piano and she learns violin. She doesn't play a lot of songs. Like, she likes strumming along with songs yet, but she doesn't do a lot of actually playing and changing chords in a structured way. She can figure out chords on the ukulele, and she knows like G, C, F, and G, but she doesn't very often play them in the right order for a song, but that's fine. But again, this is where we're in, for kids, it's the inspiration zone. It's what are you going to get them to do to keep the thing in their hand and explore it and have some fun with it. I'm hoping that as I start teaching my daughter more, that I'm planning to develop a children's course from experience as I'm teaching her, because I don't feel like I've experienced that enough. Definitely, you want to be, again, it's finding things, music that the students connect with is the key thing. So if you're teaching, like when I'm teaching my daughter, I'm not trying to teach her, I don't know, music I like, Led Zeppelin or something like that. It is, well, up until recently, it was Row, Row, Row Your Boat and Bar Bar Black Sheep and stuff like that. Then it suddenly morphed into songs from Frozen, and now it's like Taylor Swift and Katy Perry, and luckily AC/DC and the Foo Fighters and some other rock stuff as well. But yeah, again, it's just like she strums the ukulele with the wrong chords, but strums along, and that's really cool. Anyway, thank you, Marcus. Very generous of you, very kind. And Tommy, hi, Justin, how you doing? I'm doing good, man. A little bit hot, actually. I'm feeling a little bit on the heaty side just now, but it's okay. Are you not still teaching Lee Anderson? Lee and I have just both been really busy. I've had an absolutely crazy year because I'm doing a big house renovation project, and the website's still growing a lot, and we've had loads. Hopefully most of you have noticed on the website that we've been going a little bit crazy over there, and there's a new styling, new web features, and the team's grown. It's been a really exciting little period. So and Lee's been super busy as well, so we just haven't had time to do it, but we still see each other for hangs every now and again. And I think last time we met up, we were talking about getting that going again. I am planning to do some more filmed one-on-one stuff, but I'm still trying to figure out the format yet. I might end up taking in like random students, basically people that I don't really know, and teaching them, but streaming it. That's one of the things I'm thinking of. Anyway, yeah, I missed the captain too. Okay, what else have we got? Questions. I hope to play Row, Row, Row Your Boat someday. Yeah, absolutely. It is an all-time classic. How much do we teach per lesson? I'm not sure if you mean how much do you charge or how much do you teach. So the length of a lesson would vary between a half an hour and an hour. For really young kids, you can go less. It might only be 20 minutes or something like that. I always used to do an hour. It was like, I think I used to bill it as 55 minutes to allow a little time for the changeover, so people felt like that they got their full amount of time that they'd paid for. But yeah, it depends on your skill level and the skill level of the student. And you know, I'm not sure whether to go on to my next thing or not. In just 1 second, my phone is bleeding. I just want to check it's not Lorraine sending me messages about stuff that I should teach. No, it's not. So it's all good. To do with the program, you know, and we talked before about how it's really useful to have a kind of a series, either using mine or write out a system for yourself so that you know, so there is some sort of schedule and the student can be confident that you've got a pathway that goes from here to here. One thing a mistake that I used to make, and I used to make it all the time when I started teaching, was always feeling like I needed to give new stuff to the student every lesson. It's like, man, this guy's, you know, paid me $20. I need to give him some new things. But your role as a teacher is to help somebody get better. And if you keep going over new things all the time, it's very likely the student won't get any better because they're going to be continually trying to find these new things all the time. So one lesson that I wish I could go back and give my 15 or 17-year-old self a slap and go, just teach the same thing until they got it. And I'm not talking like for years, but what I always used to try and do is to develop one idea. So they'd learn a song, they'd learn the chords, and we try and grow it a little bit if we needed to in a second lesson, but still stay on that same thing. If you give students a strumming pattern 1 week and you say, go away and practice it, and they come back the next week going, oh man, I had a really busy one, my kid got sick or whatever, didn't do any practice. You go, okay, let's do it again. Right? So it's not like, you shouldn't feel like you have to straight away give new things to a student every time. You really want to, I think it's a really, really helpful thing to stay on a program and be able to help them through it. If they're really struggling with it, doing more stuff on it in the class, particularly like strumming. If students are really struggling for, you know, strumming well, then you want to do plenty of that in the class. Can I do the practice 1 hour? I don't know what you mean, Prish, I'm afraid. Please make a video tutorial of 1D songs that's relevant. How many lessons per week is ideal? John, I'm not sure if you mean how many lessons should you be doing a week, or how many times would a student do a lesson. It would usually only be once a week or once a fortnight. So most of my students were only fortnightly because I used to be able to pile. Yeah, the last few years that I was teaching, it was a pretty intense thing. I only taught, well, I mostly taught like, you know, people at university or master's level, and I would give them a lot of stuff to do. So yeah, it was only, they needed usually a fortnight to get through all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, as to how many you do, I used to do 12 students a day, 2 days a week. That was my thing. I used to teach the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and I used to teach 8 till 8, and it was a hard slog, and I worked really hard. I often didn't eat during the day. I think it was a bit silly in hindsight to do it that way, but what it meant was that I made enough money from doing that that I didn't have to work the rest of the week, and I could work on, at that period, I was pretty focused on being a songwriter and all of that, so I used to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, well done, Keith. Thank you for doing that. Mary's there, great tip. Teachers who kept giving me stuff to team and stuff. Okay, oh, that was about that. Good to see you, Mary. I hope you're doing great. How do you deal with cancellations? Okay, another good question from Jordan. I mean, we're getting into a bit of the businessy sort of stuff now, so I don't know the people in the room, like who at that point who are just kind of thinking of starting to get going. Cancellations for me were always paid if they cancelled on the day without a good reason. Like, I got hit by a car, my family's really sick, something like that. It's like, fine, keep the money, it's all good. Otherwise, 24 hours notice, they have to pay for it. I used to offer a discount for bulk paying up front for 5 and 10 lessons as well. And then I had a little each student had a little card where I'd write down their lesson and they'd sign on it as well, so that we both knew that they'd had their 5 or 10 lessons or whatever, and then they'd pay again. So that was how I dealt with cancellations. But again, it depends on the level you're at. I think when you've got young children or whatever, that stuff's probably more, when you're teaching younger children, that's probably going to be more prevalent than when you're teaching serious uni students or not. So let me have a little drink here, go for some questions. Happy birthday, Stephanie. I won't be doing any Bob Dylan songs on my website because he tried to close my YouTube channel down about 5 years ago, so I won't be doing any Bob Dylan anytime soon. Have you ever had a student say that you're a bad teacher? No, not in person. I had an email just the other day that was really funny. This guy really paid out on me on this email. It was like, I'm the best teacher. I can teach you how to teach because I think you're very good. And, you know, I was like, really? Come on, man. Like, it's just a bit. Oh, the internet is such a funny place. Will have achieved cumulatively after finishing each lesson. It would be nice to have videos showing what you will have achieved cumulatively at the end of each lesson. That is an interesting point there. I can get with that. I think I talk about it in the, if you're talking about my beginner course, I think I talk about it at the beginning of each lesson, each module, I guess, is the correct term now. It used to be called lessons, now they're called modules. But at the beginning of that, it gives you what you're going to do in that module, and what the very last lesson tells you what you should have achieved by the end of it. And I'm pretty sure it's in the video as well, but whether I demonstrate it or not, I'm not sure. Yeah. How important the spice feel of a musician? I feel like it's still, sorry, what was that? Underrated. Can you learn it or is it given? Okay. So that's a really good question. Teaching feel. How on earth do you do that? And that's one that it bugged me for a long time, how to teach it. Now I teach it all of the time and I talk about it all the time. You just might not notice what it is or why I teach it. And that is playing along with the original recordings with the strings muted for feel. So a thing called time feel. So like if you think about eighth note strumming, good thing I've got a guitar here. So eighth note strumming, you might have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and if you do it like exactly, it doesn't have a very good feel if it's like really mechanical, like metronomic. Real feel, nice feel, is this weird mixture of some notes being slightly earlier and later than other notes, and some notes being slightly louder and quieter than other notes. And I think the best way of picking that up, and I've seen lots of students do it and I still use it myself, is playing along with the original recordings with the strings muted so that I'm not fussed about playing the chords right, and I'm just thinking about the rhythmic feel of it. And then I play along. And you somehow absorb it. I don't exactly understand, but I do talk about it in most of my beginner lessons now, about trying to play along with the original recording. So for me, there are certain songs that are really good for If It Makes You Happy by Sheryl Crow is one that's a fantastic kind of a slower one. There's loads of Neil Young songs actually, but the vibe is just really to try and get in, really trying to get the feel with the record, so you can you absorb, you get used to playing it. If you try and imagine you're in the band and you're trying to lock in would be the term that you use for drums and bass players, use that term all the time, but really locking into the rhythm so you feel like you're in the band, and you really work on sitting so you're not anticipating and you're not dragging, falling behind. You're exactly with it, exactly with it. You'll know when you got it and it'll feel really good. And that was something I used to do with students. I'd only figured it out kind of toward the end of when I was doing a lot of private lessons, but I used to have students all the time sitting in the room with me. We'd put on a song that they were learning and they'd be strumming along, and you can see when you get it, you're like, oh yeah, I got it. And it was super exciting. And then it's about kind of capturing that and repeating it enough that you can do it when you're not playing along with the original one, so that you can lock into that, either that really lazy feel or really, tight feeling or whatever, because every song feels a little different. And it really does make the feeling of it can be very different. And that's the only way I've come across teaching it. It is a hard thing. I didn't know how to learn it and I didn't know how to teach it until, I mean, it was 10 years ago, I suppose now, at least, but yeah. Okay. Why people usually say B flat instead of A sharp? Because B flat has only 2 flats in the key signature, and A sharp has a lot. I just trying to think, is it 2 all sharps and 2 double sharps in A sharp? So yeah, A sharp is just got a lot more sharps in the key signature, so it makes it a lot more confusing. Thank you, Abu Bakr. Stephanie still sends a letter. Oh, it's rolling down. There we go. Text had stopped. Jim donated to cover kibble for Ziggy. Oh, thank you very much. I'm sure Ziggy will appreciate that greatly. I don't have lessons on how to play with my teeth. Mighty Vapor, appropriate name. Curious to get a couple of areas. What level of playing is a good time to consider teaching? Okay, that's one that I talked a bit about earlier, but I'll revisit it in a second. Can teaching be a tool for accelerating your own journey? Doug, you need to go back and watch the beginning of this stream, because that's stuff that I was exactly talking about right at the beginning. So when this is finished and it's rolling around again, you can go back and watch it. Do you think it's a bad idea to teach an aspect of guitar before you have mastered it yourself? So mastered is a strong thing, because I often don't feel like I've mastered much on the guitar at all. I still feel like a beginner. I can do some things all right on guitar, but I don't feel like a master of it, like, say, I don't know, Josh Smith or Robin Ford or Eric Johnson or Steve Vai or whatever. That, those are master guitar players who are technical geniuses and at the pinnacle of the form. And I don't feel that. I think with teaching, you have to have a solid groundwork and be able to understand and know what's going on and the common mistakes that people make and stuff like that. But when I think in terms of like sport, Roger Federer had a tennis coach, right? But obviously there wasn't anyone better at, well, arguably a couple of years ago, there wasn't anyone better at tennis than he still had a coach. So to be a coach or to be a teacher doesn't necessarily you have to even be better than the person you're teaching. You just have to be able to help them get better. So I think I'd be able to help people get better at jazz, even though I'm not really a very good jazz guitar player, because I understand the process and the form and how it works, how learning of it works, and how learning full stop works. So you can help somebody in that respect. So, but you should still be confident. I don't think it's a good idea to teach stuff that you're not confident with, which is why I don't I have a slide guitar basics lesson, but like, I'm not going to start parading around like I'm a superstar slide player and trying to teach playing behind the slide, because I can't do it very well. Like I'd feel embarrassed if I tried to teach something like that and I was a bit out of tune. There are some people that feel like it's okay, and that's fine to do that, teaching bending when they're not bending in tune, that kind of thing. But I think it's better to be teaching things that you're at least reasonably confident with. Okay, Big Joe, tell your wife I said hi. Sounds like that's that's funny. It's a funny old world we inhabit, isn't it, with spouses knowing what we're up to. Anyway, okay, if you go down, I notice a sharp. Okay, I knew that. What are block chords, and are they useful? I just heard block chords are just chords where you play all the notes at the same time. Self-taught 3 months in. I'm at your intermediate course in pentatonic scales. Well done, Mighty Vapor. Okay, do you teach until your students are up to your level, then you let them go? I don't think I ever taught a student like up to my level. It would depend on what your level is, I guess. And I don't mean that in a so amazing way, just I didn't teach people that were generally into the same sort of places that I was at. What you're going to find interesting part of the teaching journey is this understanding what you know and what you don't know. So if you know very little, I can't remember who it was that formulated this. I think I often credit as Socrates, but I'm not sure if it was Socrates or one of the ancient Greek philosophers talked about this circle of knowledge. And like, if your circle is like that, that's how much you know. Here's all the things you know. The things that you don't know is the circumference of the circle. If you do it around the other way, is here. That's the circumference of the circle of the things that you don't know. You don't know that you don't know other stuff. If you know more, if I know that much, it's the circumference of that whole circle of the outside points of my knowledge. They're the things I know I don't know. So in a lot of ways, like, I know I don't know a lot more than most of you, I'm assuming, unless Josh Smith's popped in just to wind me up or something. But this idea of not realizing you don't even know something is a really fascinating journey, part of the teacher's journey. And it's, again, part of that thing why, I think it's really valuable for people to do some teaching for free if you're not very good, and if you feel like you're okay at it, then starting to charge for it. But it's really beneficial as a musician, as a guitar player, potentially as a human, to get that kind of understanding of knowledge, of learning more things, seeing more places where you need to make improvements yourself as well. I think it's a really valuable thing. Okay. How do you persuade a student only interested in lead guitar that they need to learn rhythm too? James, you just play them a song and you explain to them that the solo only is for 30 seconds in the song, and if they're ever going to play in a band, they have to play all the other stuff too. But that said, they could argue, hey, I want to be like B.B. King. B.B. King never played rhythm, ever. Never, ever, ever. He only played lead lines, melody lines. So I think we have to be a little bit careful as teachers to impose our own thoughts onto our students as some sort of gospel, because that's not how it works. Like, I don't know, if Jeff Beck had come to have a lesson with me when I was 17, I definitely would have said, dude, you want to play rock guitar, but you want to do it with your fingers. Are you mad? Get yourself a pick. What are you doing? You won't be able to play fast or do anything like that without a pick. He's Jeff Beck. Like, what a ridiculous idea that is now, looking back at it now. So I think individuality is to be encouraged. James Taylor plays his D chord backwards. So when James Taylor plays a D, he plays it like that with these fingers swapped the wrong way around. And I would have thought, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Like, that's just the wrong way around. But actually, you know what? It doesn't matter. Same, he plays the A upside down too, I think. Maybe it's so he can get that nice hammer on clearer. One of his I can't do it. It does. Maybe it's easier to get the flick on. Whatever. You get the point. It's James Taylor. James Taylor. Like, you can't say James Taylor did it wrong, right? It just doesn't happen that way. If Albert King came for a lesson, he said, dude, your guitar's upside down. What you doing, man? So you have to try and find the balance with the student about what they want to do and where they're going and all that sort of stuff. I think generally speaking, for beginners, it's okay to pigeonhole them and say, look, this is the way I think you should do it. This is the best way that works for most people. But if they're rebellious and they say, no, I want to do it this other way. Guys that want to learn to play guitar in fourths, where the guitar's tuned differently. Like, okay, I'm teaching you because I can't do that. But, if you really want to do it, then off you go. And it's a good thing. It's to be encouraged, because they're likely to be a lot more unique guitar player. You end up like Tom Quayle and these cats like that. It's not my thing, but it's to be admired that they've got an individual slant on something. So that's still an interesting way around. Okay, yeah. Thank you, John. Please give me some tips on ringing third string on F minor bar chord. That's coming up next week. There's an F minor bar chord lesson, so hang on for that. What are your thoughts on teaching power chords right off the bat to get your student playing songs as quickly as possible and get them going? Okay, that is Young Gunners ask a very good question about power chords. So I did used to do that sometimes. I started with power chords for guys that were particularly into rock, but that was kind of like the 90s, where most people learning guitar wanted to learn Metallica and Poison and Guns N' Roses and that sort of stuff. But music seems to have moved on a lot, become a lot more diverse since then. So I suspect I'd encounter that a lot less, but that's totally fine to do that. If you do that, you might want to go and check out my Master Rock Power Chords course. There's backing tracks and downloads and charts and everything. And it's exactly that. It's, if you've never played guitar before, how to get started on power chords is that course. On my website, it's in grade 3, because I would encourage people to learn normal chords and all of that sort of stuff before power chords. But you could sneak in there and start with the power chords if you wanted to. That would work as well. Cheers, Altrian. Will I ever do a lesson on slow dancing in a burning room? Outro solo. I don't know. I've done the main song, but I don't know if I'll do the outro solo. How to get courage to play outside? Please reply. How to get courage to play outside? I'm assuming you mean like to play in front of people or do a concert. Yeah, you just need to be good enough to do it. I guess that's the. I think it's a good idea to do it incrementally. So to be able to play, if you can't play something confidently on your own, you're not going to be able to play it well in front of other people. So definitely get to the point where you can do it on your own first. What I used to do when I was I went to the Tasmanian Conservatorium of Music, and we used to have the nastiest exams of all time, where the teachers would be 4 examiners in a concert hall as well, not even just a room, a concert hall. They would be sitting at a desk, blank faces. They weren't allowed to smile or give you any kind of encouragement, which was always found a bit weird. But anyway, and then you'd have to go and sit down and perform like a 45-minute set of really difficult classical music with these people staring at you. No applause, no feedback, nothing. It's very weird. And in order to train myself for that, I used to go outside my room. I used to set up a chair and a music stand and stuff, and I'd go outside. I'd stand outside and I'd imagine myself being in that situation, like I'm just outside the exam room and I'm about to go. And if I imagined it strongly enough, I could elevate my pulse and I could get my hands really sweaty and stuff. So I used to practice that feeling, and then I'd go and practice with that feeling. So I was kind of slightly aware of it. So you might find that would be a helpful thing to try and develop a resilience to those feelings of nervousness. But it's dead normal. And it's not, for me, when I get nervous now, because I still do if I've got to perform a big gig or something, I try to acknowledge those feelings as excitement rather than nerves. So I'm like, I'm about to do that thing that I really love doing. And when I'm about to do that, my hands get a bit clammy and my tummy feels a little bit weird. And I feel a bit like, agitated, or there's a bit of an adrenaline surge going on. And that's like a sign for me that I'm about to do that thing I really like, rather than people recognizing those things and going, oh, it's going to make me really nervous. So that's how I flick it. Do I ever listen to death metal? Not really. I did listen to some the other day for a project, which I won't talk about yet, but you'll see me on it soon, probably playing some death metal. And I can't remember the name of the band that I listened to, but yeah, it was pretty heavy. It was kind of funny. Speed Sloth asks, how come the guitar isn't tuning fourths? Why is one string a third apart? Try tuning your guitar in fourths and try playing your open chords, and you'll figure it out very quickly. It just doesn't work. Game of Thrones, your course enough to become an advanced player? Yeah, like if you follow through all my stuff, you should be a working musician, and I give you the tools to become an advanced player, because you shouldn't still need my help. Most of the hard graft is in like beginner and intermediate levels, right? If you can get through all of that, your bar, your scales, and the function of notes in the chords, and you understand what modes are and how they work, blah blah blah, then you're ready to start learning stuff on your own, and you just transcribe music that you love and absorb from it and analyze the stuff that you like and take out of it what you would. Do you need to know music theory to teach? I don't think you need to know it if you're not teaching it, but it's a very valuable thing. You should definitely know, like, I think you should know the notes on the neck and about sharps and flats, and probably notes in the keys, like the fundamental stuff up to kind of intermediate grade theory. If you don't know that, I've got a theory course over on the website that you can go and check out. I rarely play in front of people, and I played recently impromptu and did terrible. The lesson I learned was to just stop and play something you know really well, which is my music. Yeah, so you should definitely, if you're going to play out, you know that it's going to be harder than when you play in your room. So if you can't play something confidently at home, then don't try and play it out. And I would always start with something easy as well. So even I did like a charity gig a couple of years ago where I was going to do some of my own difficult kind of fingerstyle arrangement-y sort of stuff. I was on the same bill as Mike Dawes, so it was already a little bit terrifying anyway. But I started with some easy, strummy sort of songs, because just to let myself settle into it. And I think that's, yeah, it's slightly off topic. No more jazz coming in the immediate future, but later on for sure. what classic songs do you recommend for beginners? Go and have a look on my website. For each lesson, there are recommended songs for each step of the way. Are there any instructors on YouTube I admire? There are plenty. There's lots of great teachers on Tube. Now you want me to name names, and I'm struggling to think of the ones that I like the most. What lessons do I like the most? I can't think of the names of their channels, to be honest. There's all the classic guys that, Marty and Carl and those the cats that kind of were there at the beginning. They were really good. Obviously, Paul David's fantastic teacher, an incredible videographer, and makes really interesting kind of entertainment things as well as tutoring. I feel like his stuff is more entertaining, not more entertaining, as entertaining as it is instructional. I don't want to get myself in trouble there, but yeah. Do you also have to tune the G string out of tune more often than the others? Not on this guitar. No, I don't. Okay, look, I'm nearly out there. Just let me have a look on my little list there of things I was going to talk about. We talked about I think we've got through everything there. We talked about the practice schedule. We talked about the online course. How do you keep learners motivated? From Harvey, we've done that one already. So Carla, sorry, a couple other questions that were from the donors for the charity thing. This is a question from Carl, which was somebody who's failed to learn guitar a number of times over the last 15 years to thinking I'm not making progress. The defining moment for him was the Knit Sudge series, which is when I learned to play guitar backwards. That is my backwards, left-handed. That's my name backwards, if you haven't noticed that. If you want to watch me learn guitar backwards, some of it's quite funny. You'll find it all over on the website. I'm not sure I'll be continuing with Knit Sudge for the time being, mostly just because it takes a lot of time. Like, I don't have enough time to practice myself right-handed to learn new things and develop my own skills. So I'm kind of reluctant a bit to continue with Knit Sudge. He might make an appearance later on down the way. I did play left-handed the other day just for fun at a friend's house who had a lefty around, but yeah, I need to get that back. I've tried teaching my 6-year-old daughter JustinGuitar ukulele course without success. We have a lovely ukulele with glow stars, but she prefers just playing my guitar. I think she's not interested in practicing on her own guitar. Is she just too young? When's a good age to start? I'll tell you, that's from Alexander. I'll have to tell you that later when I get a bit more success teaching my own daughter to play ukulele and guitar. At the moment, she's more into singing and songwriting. She writes her own songs already, which is amazing. So yeah, I don't think it'll be too long before she's got more of an interest in uke. She strums it, and she strums my guitars and stuff and likes making a noise, but it's different to actually learning it. Okay, I've got some shout outs here as well. Some thank yous for people who donating for their charity. So big thank you to Stephanie, Mick, Gregory, Carl, Marie-Andre, Andrew. I would have thought that was Andrea as the spelling mistake, but I'm not sure. Nadia and Anne. So big thank you. So the live streams. Oh yeah. So we're Keith will know all about this. We've got another live stream. A live stream. What's a live stream? A live stream going to be happening soon over on the Songs channel. So this is the main channel where you are now. If you haven't been over there, we just hit 1 million subs on the Songs channel. Woohoo! So we're going to be doing some like student concerts over there very soon. We did a kind of a try-hard one. We did a try-out one a little while ago, and I'm just about to start booking the dates in for these between now and the end of the year. So there's some exciting stuff coming up for that. So do make sure you go and sign up on the Songs channel and hit the bell. Make sure you get notified if you want to know about that. And if you want to participate, you need to keep an eye out on the newsletter, because that's where we'll be talking about that and all the forum. Yeah, Keith says, oh, I'm still recovering. You did great, Keith. Don't worry about it. Okay, I think I'm about there, and I've covered all the stuff I was going to do. I'm debating doing a teacher training course as well, like an in-person teacher training workshop thing. But again, watch out in the newsletter for that, because that's where I'll probably announce news on that sometime soon. Okay, I think should I do? What have we got? We've got another minute or two. Any questions? Burning questions out there? My favorite guitar under 500 quid. I don't even know what guitars are under 500 quid. I'm really sorry. I just don't know. But I don't have much theory. Should I? If you don't break the silence, if you can teach without theory if you want. I think you should learn the theory. Like, it's not that difficult. Head over to justinguitar.com/theory and get on the course and learn it. It's not that hard. Like, to understand basic theory, notes on the neck, chords in the key, notes in the major scale, how the major scale and the diatonic chords, like chords in the key, works together. If you know that, you're kind of going to be all right. That's the most basic level of stuff that you really want to get down. Yeah. Am I still planning on doing tone amp course? Yes. Thoughts on John Mayer as a guitar player? Incredible. Great tools for creating teaching materials. Guitar Pro is really good. I tend to use the one program called Sibelius the most for like typesetting, fancy looking stuff, but Guitar Pro is a lot easier to use, and the fact that students can play it back is good. Tom asks if I'm wearing a Panerai watch, and I am. I like watches. Will you be doing videos for the power chord lesson soon? I will be doing lessons for those power chords. I think that Master Rock Power Chords series will have video lessons for the whole lot. That was supposed to be this week, but I ended up having my second vaccine and taking a day out to feel miserable by myself. But yeah, that will be coming up soon. Question about guitars, but I don't know that. How do you deal with a student who seems uninterested? I tell them not to come anymore, and I'm dead serious. That's a great question, John. If I get a student who's not interested and not practicing, I just say, I think it'd be a really good idea if we take a little break because you're not practicing. How about you come back when you're feeling more inspired? See ya. Don't waste your time and energy teaching people who aren't into it. When should I show students how to set up their guitars? Thanks. Andre, if they're beginners, just set it up for them in the lesson. Like, not the very first lesson, but a few lessons in, set it up for them. That's a good idea. Rick says triads or full chords. Triads every time. What do you think is the most overplayed guitar song? I don't know. Lots. Sweet Child of Mine, I'll say. When can you look at getting a guitar with when can I look into getting a guitar with a flowing tremolo? When you know how to get it in tune and keep it in tune when you break a string. Update on beginner grade 3. That'll be that Master Rock Power Chords, which is the next thing that's coming for grade 3, which was supposed to be today, so it'll probably be next week or whatever. Paul says I skyrocketed his journey, so thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Will there be an update for grade 3, and what about in the app? Not in the app immediately, no. That'll be a little way off. How about more in depth on hybrid picking? That'll be to do with what I was talking about earlier. I don't feel like I'm good enough at it to really explain that properly. Go and check out Tom Quayle if you want lessons on hybrid picking. He's a master at it. Okay, Bollywood song. I have been trying to do a Bollywood song. You have no idea how long I've been trying to do a Bollywood song. In fact, I even found an amazing singer who was going to come and sing with me, and then I just locked the virus thing happened. It all fell down by the way, but I'll resurrect it. Do you think that teachers that do in-person lessons should start doing YouTube lessons too? Don't know. Like I said, that I'm not trying to put people off because it would sound so petty, like going, get out of my, get off my turf or whatever, if I tried to tell people not to do YouTube lessons, because that would just be stupid. But of course they should. But I think that I think that people doing online tutorials should be, I was going to say they've got to learn. So like there's a bit of me saying you shouldn't do lessons on stuff unless you're confident that you're doing a good job of it. You've got some experience teaching, so you know the mistakes students are going to make and to head them off so they don't make them because you're not there to guide them in person, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, everyone's got to learn somehow. And that would be, when I look at my early videos, I don't think I did a good job with that either. Like the production on my early videos was appalling. I had plenty of teaching experience and no production experience. I didn't even edit the audio for years, like to master it or anything. So I don't know. Have I ever cut a one-to-one short because a student was rude? No. Okay, we're just about done. I was just knocking out these quick questions because I thought it would be kind of fun. But I probably need to leave it there. I still want to do a little bit of practice. I got some stuff to work on, some scripting for the stuff for tomorrow. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope this was helpful to you. Like I said, make sure you signed up on the website. It's completely free, and then you'll get my newsletter, and then you can find out about all of this other stuff I've got coming up. If you prefer hanging out on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell icon if you want to get notified for the stuff I've got coming up, and the live stream sort of performance thing, the JustinGuitar show, which will be coming very soon as well. I don't have a production course, Billy, but I will have soon. I've got to stop reading the questions because I can just keep going here for ages. But yeah. Have a fantastic Friday and a weekend. Weekend's nearly here. Yay. Really looking forward to that. I don't work weekends, and I've got really into this idea. Like, I look forward to the weekends so much more now that I don't work on them, as if I can call sitting in my room playing guitar and making lessons work. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great one, and I'll see you plenty more very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.